You're listening to Beat Autoimmune and Thrive, the podcast all about reversing and preventing autoimmune conditions so you can live your most vibrant life as soon as possible. We talk about autoimmune root causes, actionable solutions, and inspirational healing stories. I'm Palmer Kippola, and I used to have MS. Today, I'm an author, a speaker, a functional medicine certified health coach, a pickleball player, and nature lover who's helped thousands of people reclaim their health and their best lives. Let's dive into this episode. Well, I am here today with Linda Clark. She is back for a part 2 interview on the gut, healing the gut. About 80% of your immune system is located in the lining of your gut, so that when you have a compromised gut barrier or an imbalanced microbiome, it is a setup for big problems down the road. If you have the genes for an autoimmune condition, a leaky gut is the pathway to autoimmunity. And so we need to remove our triggers and heal and seal our gut. That's the pathway out of autoimmune problems. But in addition to that, it is the pathway to healing and keeping ourselves as protected as possible as we're facing these new viral threats. So Linda Clark, for those of you who don't know, let me read her bio because she's got a distinguished biography. She's a holistic health expert. She's an educator, and she's the founder of Universal Wellness Associates in Sacramento, California. She's an adjunct professor at John F. Kennedy University, where she teaches numerous courses for the Holistic Health Master's Program. Today, Linda is with us to talk about gut health. She has been serving clients for 16 or more years and taking them through this whole process that she calls Detox 360, which encompasses both an elimination phase, but really examining the toxins in your environment and removing them and helping people heal. So welcome, Linda. We're thrilled to have you back.
Thank you, Palmer. I'm glad to be here.
Oh, it's an absolute delight. So as you know, we are having a very broad conversation about gut health. It's very big. It's on the minds of many, many people. And before we got started, we were talking about barrier function. So I wonder if you can talk a little bit about why it's so important for us to seal our guts. Can you give us a little bit of your perspective on the importance of having sealed barriers?
Well, if we look at our barrier system, it's basically made up of muscle cells, endothelium, and they connect to each other. So you have to think, how are they connected and what do they do? They can move, they can have muscle activity, so you're moving things on through. Now think of the GI tract, think of motility. They're moving things on through the GI tract, through peristalsis, and then, of course, into the colon and for release through the feces. So think of the whole GI tract as part of our most important barrier system. But the gut barrier isn't the only kind, and it's held together by proteins. So there's some permeability. So things and nutrients especially can get through and can provide nutrition for us and feed us and keep us healthy. And that's true of all of our barrier systems. So think of the gut as a big barrier system, and it's an immune system too. Think of that gut barrier. It's also housing immune cells, dendritic cells that recognize what's coming in and alert the immune system, whether it's friendly or it's unfriendly. Think of the lungs having the same kind of barrier system. Think of lungs moving in and out. Again, that movement. So things are actually expelled if they need to be expelled. And from the lungs, basically, you get the mucus from the lungs. It will go up into the throat, into the saliva, and then goes down into the gut. So think of even the lungs as processing things through the lungs. It now goes down also into your gut. Think of the skin. It's our largest barrier system. Think of all the things that you do each day, the lotions that you put on your skin, anything that you put on your skin. With your lungs, of course, anything that you inhale and take in. Now we also have a sinus barrier, and we have a blood-brain barrier. So Basically, it's the same system, and they're all part of our major immune system. But the gut is the most important and the largest of all those systems. And when those proteins are intact and they hold the lining together well, so they're semi-permeable and things naturally can move in and out, that's a healthy gut. That's a healthy barrier system. And if they can't, and if they've been breached, and if we start to build more holes in those cells, between the cells, and there's a breach and a break in those cells, we have what we call enhanced gut permeability, or what we like to call a leaky gut. And the same thing can happen to your lungs. And this is what I used to tell my students: leaky gut, leaky lung, leaky skin, leaky brain, and leaky sinuses.
Wow. I just have to pause for a moment, because that is, that's a lot to take in, right? I mean, so when we talk, let's just first back up a pace or two. When we talk about the gut, that we are talking about the large and small intestine. Is that right? Is that your definition?
Yeah, the large and small intestine, but you have to think of the gut is not only that, but our digestive system.
The whole thing.
So that starts in the brain when we first start to think of food. I mean, if you're thinking of food, this is, I always give the example, a very easy example that I was taught early on is a lemon. The minute you start thinking of eating a lemon, what happens to your mouth?
Oh, total salivary festival in there.
Absolutely. Right now, I can feel it. I can feel the taste. It's just sour taste.
Yes.
Well, that starts the process of digestion. And that process of digestion starts also in the saliva in your mouth. And the saliva in your mouth has not only enzymes, but immune chemicals that help you, as we're processing our food, and there's something on the food that the immune system isn't going to like. Let's just say there's a parasite on your food. The saliva helps with immune system, helps to begin the process of starting to clear. And then as you get down further through the esophagus into the stomach, you have got hydrochloric acid. Very acidic. It can kill these microbes. And when you have healthy digestion, good digestive function with good hydrochloric acid output, you're more likely to kill those microbes. Also, as you get further on down, you not only have your small intestine, which again, through your stomach and then into your small intestine, where you're really processing the foods themselves and breaking them down. Then they go into the colon. But you have to think of the liver and gallbladder also as part of your immune system and your gut. Because through the liver, we have the bile where it's stored, and bile is very acid, with the bile acids, which go into the gallbladder, which eventually go into the small intestine, which help us break down our fats. But the load of toxins from our foods or anything we ingest actually get stored there sometimes. And so you have to have really good bile activity. And then you have enzyme activity also from the pancreas. Even though the pancreas makes insulin so that we can get energy from our food, get the glucose into our cells, but you also have enzymes made in the pancreas that help us further break down the foods or even microbes and mobilize them into the colon so we can release them. And that's our goal, is to release them, kill them and release them. But if you have that leaky gut, and if you don't have good stomach acid or good digestive function, those microbes will go into the gut. And if there's a breach in that lining of the gut, and becomes, instead of just semi-permeable, more holes and more permeability, and you don't break down your foods, you're going to have foods that now are not broken down into their components. So your body knows that they're friendly. And now they become unfriendly, especially if it's a larger protein that the body doesn't recognize, or if it's a microbe it doesn't get rid of, it now gets into circulation. And then our immune system gets more active, starts to tear more holes in the gut.
Wow. We need to pause for a moment, because you've just handed us a lot. So it sounds like there's a tremendous amount that we need to get right.
Yes.
Right? Okay. So it sounds like there's the component of acid production, that we need to have an acid enough environment in our guts, or we're not actually going to break down those foods or maybe kill the parasites or the microbes that need to be killed. So that's one. You mentioned bile flow and making sure that we are able to release the proper amount of bile and make sure maybe that it is fluid enough and not stuck or sticky bile, right?
Yeah.
And that we have to have enzymes, pancreatic enzymes, to help us actually break down those protein molecules. Those are three big components. Now, how would somebody know if, let's start with a couple things. How would somebody know if they're not making enough acid, if they're not making enough bile or releasing it properly, or if they don't have enough pancreatic enzymes? What would be the signs that there's something wrong with digestion?
Well, many times we'll look for just overall bowel motility, whether there's constipation or diarrhea or loose stools, combination of those two, kind of an IBS, irritable bowel syndrome presentation. We'll look for gas. We'll look for bloating, especially bloating. You will see a lot with low stomach acid, but a lot with bile stasis, where the bile is thickened and it's not running smoothly. So again, the fats aren't being broken down. Sometimes you look in a toilet bowl, and believe me, most people look at me like I'm crazy, and I'm sure they say the same thing to you. Look at your stool. Look at the quality of your stool. It should be these long tubes that are well formed. And as they get to the bottom of the toilet bowl, they shouldn't plop down. They should just flow easily to the bottom of the toilet bowl. Now, if you find some feces floating, you're not digesting your fat. That is another sign. Not only are you low hydrochloric acid, but you're low lipase to digest your fats, and you're most likely low bile. Even if you've had your gallbladder removed, you're still making bile. But the bile doesn't run now through the gallbladder. It runs directly into the cystic duct in the small intestine, where eventually it gets anyway, but now you don't have that buffer. So it sometimes makes it more problematic. And those people who have had their gallbladder removed need to be on bile support all the time. Dandelion root is one of those, even beets. Ingesting beets do help because it helps move the bile. Milk thistle is another one that we use for that. Sometimes we have to use ox bile, just depends upon the person. A lot of times if we improve the hydrochloric acid output, we can use bitters for that, or betaine hydrochloride. We try the bitters first because those bitter herbs were designed to help the entire digestive tract. There's receptors on all aspects of our digestion, from the liver to the stomach to the intestines, for those bitter herbs. So it's a more profound treatment rather than just betaine hydrochloride. Or you could combine the two to help out, or enzymes to help out as well. But getting that first step in the stomach with the hydrochloric acid and the pepsin, but pepsin is actually what breaks down your proteins, is one of the most important things for keeping your gut healthy and your immune system in the gut healthy.
Wow. So I want to talk to you specifically about two digestive issues that I see a lot, in particular with women and autoimmune conditions. And a lot of these women are going to have low and slow thyroid, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, for example. And I see this in a lot of people with MS. So it's not just one type of autoimmune, but I see constipation as probably the most frequent type of digestive disorder, and bloating. Those are the two big things that I see. And most of the people that I serve are around between 40 and 55, maybe 35 to 55 women. And so you're adding perimenopause on top of that. And as I understand it, we stop making so much acid production after 40. Is that what you understand?
Yes, I haven't read enough research to verify that, but that is our understanding. And actually, I see that like you do in practice. I see as women age and men age that the parietal cells actually become more degenerated and weaker. So they're not producing as much stomach acid.
So in this case, you're recommending the first step. If somebody's got constipation or is bloated frequently, that is a sign. That's a really good sign that there is some digestive
Yes.
problem.
Absolutely, 100%. And of course, you and I know there's many reasons for that. But honestly, just helping them improve digestion is probably the number one thing that I do. And I want to hark back to your thyroid because I teach a lot of classes on thyroid physiology and nutritional management of thyroid as well. Because like you, most of our clients have autoimmune. And the number one autoimmune that we see is autoimmune thyroid. Mostly Hashimoto's, but I have a few Graves clients as well, and that's a whole different scenario with digestion because things move too fast. Mm-hmm. But one of the common signs, even as a child, when a child has digestive issues, is possible thyroid issues later on, is constipation, especially one that has intractable constipation. We have a patient that was, when I first met her, she was around 5 years old. And she's had constipation probably since she was born. It's always been a problem. And we've tried, of course, her mother's tried many things. We've tried many things, different forms of magnesium, other things to soften the stool, get motility going. And as it turns out, when she was 7 years old and we ran a blood test on her, because autoimmune thyroid runs in her family, she already had all the autoimmune markers. She had a very high TSH, a very low T4, and she had TPO antibodies at a very high level. And she had anxiety and some other issues related to it. The one thing about thyroid issues is, and if we look at thyroid physiology and all the wonderful things that the thyroid does to help us mobilize everything in our body, keep our immune system healthy, natural killer cell production, is lipase production. Not only lipase, which breaks down fats in the fat cells around the abdomen itself, but also producing lipase. You are going to be, if you have thyroid issues, you're more likely to have an issue with producing enough lipase to break down fat, and you're going to have slow bile release, and you're going to have a thicker bile. So this is a problem, and we see this extremely often. I have some young teenagers too that are already having some of these issues of digesting fats, the bloating, the gas, the rumbling. Some even have pain over in the right quadrant under their ribs, and it's a little tight and tense. That's liver gallbladder issues. Very, very common with bile stasis with autoimmune thyroid. Now, I know there's studies out there and I've read them, but I could tell you, I could literally go into my files and pull out at least 200 or 300 cases of those with autoimmune thyroid having these issues. Now, every client I've ever had who has had their gallbladder removed has had autoimmune thyroid. Every single client. So I didn't know that when I first started doing this work, but as I've looked through all my files, remember back seeing my clients, I finally went back in my files and said, oh my goodness, there's been a direct correlation between thyroid issues, thyroid autoimmune, and gallbladder disease. Because the bile thickens, you start to form stones, and sometimes you get the stones, locked into the bile duct. But the other issue is this. And I bring it to the attention of my clients is that you can have gallbladder pain, you could have gallbladder reflux, so you get heartburn. It's called biliary reflux. You could have all the signs like you're having a gallbladder attack, where you get pain in your chest, pain in the upper to middle back area, which is very common with gallbladder issues, pain in your shoulders, especially your right shoulder, and think of pain up the side or fullness or tightness. And people they said, oh my gosh, I'm having a gallbladder attack. I think I've got a lot of stones. And they do an ultrasound, nothing shows up. It's because they're having a lot of spasms. We call it biliary dyskinesia. And they're having a lot of spasms, and they're having thickened bile, and it gets backed up. And you can imagine the inflammation and pain that causes. So we have a lot of clients that call for that. And I didn't figure it out until, honestly, I had the same thing myself. So I said, oh my gosh, here I go. I get to treat myself and learn how to treat myself.
Well, this is how most of it starts. But I really, I feel like I need to pause you occasionally because it's so rich, Linda. Who knew the thyroid connection with gut health? I mean, it's not something that's discussed. It's
I know.
really not talked about. And I didn't even know we were going to go in this direction, but I don't want to stop talking about it because it's like, so where do you start? You actually need to address the thyroid problems is heal
Absolutely.
the gut. I mean, right?
Absolutely.
As
Your
far upstream as
hormones.
possible.
Absolutely. Your hormone system too. Just think of the adrenal system, your stress system, and your insulin. All of this works together. They're like a symphony. They dance with each other. Tag, you're it. You're it. Okay, your turn. But the thyroid has a profound effect on gut motility and on parietal cell hydrochloric acid function. So if you look at all, and when I teach this, I actually have a little chart that we see. You can see all the different connections that all these different areas of your body have directly with your thyroid function. So I love you saying that because you're absolutely right. You've got to work on the gut, but you also have to know if you have a thyroid issue, that thyroid needs to be working really, really well, whether you're on medication or you're not on medication. And all of the thyroid hormones and all the hormones, but particularly thyroid, are processed through the gut physiology and through the detox pathways. So if those aren't running smoothly, then it's hard to make T4 and T3 and convert T4 to T3. Even if you have the right nutrients, you still have to help heal the gut as you're healing the thyroid. There's no way around it.
This is so rich. So I think what I want you to do, because now we have it, it's probably not even a complete picture, but I really, really, really want you to walk us through this as though we are your clients here in terms of how you work with them. Like where do we start with all of this? Okay. So where we are is we know that we need to remove those inflammatory foods. The foods are suspect foods. We must remove them.
Absolutely.
So part of, the first part of healing is remove the things that are blocking your healing, that are blocking your immune system from functioning, that are harming your gut. And we know what the usual suspects are: the gluten, the dairy, and for many people, eggs. Right. For many people, soy and corn and those suspect foods and sugar. Okay. So let's just assume we know that. And we have taken out the bad foods. We have understood what foods are causing the permeability of the gut. So that's where we are. Take us from there.
Yes, we always start with food. You and I both believe that. Food is our medicine. We're going to start with a diet, but we've got to start not only with removing those foods, but a clean diet. You have to eat food that is mostly organically grown as much as you can. The problem is, and this is I was discussing with my clients the other day, and I was writing a newsletter about it, is that there's so many toxins in foods these days, even in whole fresh foods. There are so many toxins. You've got herbicides, you've got pesticides, and they're not only attached outside of the food, but internally within the food. There are loads of studies. I've pulled them all up. I've heard them at many seminars on how Roundup and glyphosate and other, not just those, but other pesticides on foods, and even the plastic bottles that we use for our water and things like that, how those plastics can also get in. And this has to do with our gut, and this has to do with, helping the gut heal for autoimmunity, is that if you have all these toxins on foods, those are foreign particles, and your body has to respond. Think of over your lifetime, there's 25 tons of food that you are consuming. Hopefully it's whole fresh food, but most likely not for most of us. I grew up, we didn't have a lot of fresh food. We had a lot of packaged foods.
That's right.
My mother worked, and it was convenient. Right. For her. And I get it. She wasn't a good cook when she did cook, but That's just not it wasn't our thinking back then. We were so excited to have frozen foods and frozen dinner,
TV dinners, right?
TV dinners, and whatever we could get.
Right.
We were just
Easy, convenience.
Easy. And rice-a-roni. I became the rice-a-roni queen. I would make so many different dishes
Oh
with
my
rice.
goodness. Mac and cheese.
Not realizing all the toxins that we're exposing. So think 25 tons of food over a lifetime. That's a long lifetime. And those toxins have to be processed by your gut's immune system. So think, for instance, let's just say you ate a wheat. Let's say wheat bread, because I remember getting into whole wheat bread and actually making my own bread. And of course, I never bought organic at the time. And you've got a pesticide that is not only inside of it, grown with the seed, but also outside of it. So you've got it laden with these pesticides. Now it gets into your gut. And I've seen pictures of this, and I've seen a lot of studies where as soon as it hits the gut and hits the gut lining, it literally starts a firestorm of immune activity and starts tearing holes. And that's pretty immediate. Well, now you're going to have your leaky gut. So every time you ingest that, every bite that you take of that pizza, you're going to have a leaky gut. And you're going to start that process. And it's going to continue because that's not the only piece you're going to eat. Might do it 3 days later. Or you have bread every day. Or you have bread in the morning. You have cereal in the morning. You have bread at night. You have other, constant exposures to these pesticides along with these inflammatory foods. You can imagine the firestorm of immune activity that happens all the time, every day. And when we talked about COVID, and a lot of the experts have talked about it, they say we're having so much breach of our barrier systems, especially our gut barrier and our lung barrier, of course, by the exposures of the environmental pollutants, that everyone's got this cytokine storm of activity. So when a virus, doesn't matter what virus or a microbe comes in, it stirs up even more inflammation, and it's hard for the immune system to keep fighting properly because it's in such chaos at that point.
Yes. And so my understanding is, and we know that people with autoimmune conditions are more at risk because their immune systems are dysfunctional. Yeah. Autoimmunity is an immune system problem. It's not a body part problem, right?
Yes.
Because it's mediated by what happens in the gut with that inflammation. And I just find this sometimes can sound so mysterious when we hear about inflammation, because what is inflammation? It sounds like everything's on fire.
Yeah.
It defers defense and repair. So things don't get attended to because your immune system is so busy fighting your foods and going around the bloodstream, attacking that gluten or that dairy or that sugar.
Correct.
It is simply not available to deal with a real threat. And that's why we must attend to these barriers. I mean, it's so crucial now because it's kind of like, it reminds me of the story of the boy who cried wolf, right? That he cried wolf a couple of times and there really wasn't a wolf there. But then when there was finally a wolf and he cried wolf, nobody believed him,
right?
Because he had been, making up stories before. Well, now we really do have a wolf, right? We do have a wolf, and we've already got these dysfunctional immune systems. So what we need to do is start bringing down that inflammation and being really, really mindful of what we are ingesting into our bodies. And like Linda is talking about, get rid of the foods that are laden with pesticides or grown with, Roundup built in. It's not worth it to our immune systems and our health to be ingesting these potentially very, very harmful triggers.
Right. And you and I both know that, like, the foods you mentioned originally are very important to get rid of, but adding that other component of having really clean food as much as possible is absolutely essential, and a variety of food. This is the other thing that I'm sure you teach. I teach a lot about different colors of foods, having a big variety, because you're getting a variety of nutrients, because those nutrients not only provide health to our body, but they improve our immune function. Our immune system cannot function without vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin A, the list goes on, all of our minerals. And those also help to improve the gut barrier system. Vitamin A is absolutely crucial for repairing the lung barrier system and the gut barrier system and the skin barrier system. So think of all those barrier systems as one major system. So these vitamins are essential. Vitamin D, crucial for our immune system in general, but also for our gut immune system. Fiber, also crucial for butyrate and short-chain fatty acids, which help keep our immune system more quiescent and regulated, building our immune tolerance to foods so that we don't have so many reactions to foods. Your digestive system, if you're not breaking down your proteins in your foods through hydrochloric acid, your enzyme activity, then those proteins come in packages. They're called peptides. So those amino acids come in these long packages. Wheat is one of the largest. That's why it's so difficult. And it'll stay in your system longer and cause more damage for a longer period of time. But hydrochloric acid and pepsin are there to break down and cleave off those amino acids from each other, because those amino acids rebuild your entire immune system, your cells in your body to help them run, your muscles. Essential. But if you're not getting them,
let me just pause you for a moment, because we're not talking about taking those enzymes so that you can digest wheat. What you're talking about is clean sources of protein. So having grass-fed, 100% grass-fed meats as an example of what you're talking about, correct?
Yes, I'm talking, this is why organic meats are essential. But I'm also talking about if your digestive system is not functioning optimally, that even breaking down those healthy proteins may be problematic. So think of it that way too, that if you're not breaking down proteins into their component amino acids, like a single amino acid, that's what the body recognizes, the immune system recognizes as friendly to your body, because that's what it needs to build all the other proteins that are in your body.
Got it.
So if that's not happening, then you're going to have larger proteins that actually help create more inflammation, because the immune system now has to attack them. And then you have a leaky gut. And then, of course, those proteins get into circulation. And this is talk about autoimmunity now, literally. And microbes could be attached to those. And they will land on any organ or gland. And if we look at the protein, the structure of different organs and glands, they're proteins as well. Thyroid gland is a protein gland. And if we look at the proteins in wheat and in gluten, or in gliadin, which is a protein in gluten, and other types of proteins in wheat and gliadin, very similar protein structure to the thyroid gland. And again, you're going to have lots of different organs that match these different amino acids. And what happens right then and there is, if the body says, oh, I don't like that protein, I have to get rid of it, guess what it's going to do? It's going to attack that protein. And if it's found in the thyroid gland, it's going to attack the thyroid.
That's right.
So there you have that round circle of autoimmunity through the immune system, through your food, digestive system, but also the quality, like you said, the quality of the food that you have, and even the quality of the proteins. Not having those proteins have pesticides embedded within them through the feed that is coming in for those animals.
So let's look again at how people know they have a problem. The starting point would be if you have gas, if you have bloating, if you have constipation, if your stools are floating, if you see undigested food in your stools. And I'm sorry if this is uncomfortable for people, but you must know. You must know, because these are huge clues that you actually need to be doing something to assist your digestive process. That is going to help you reverse these autoimmune conditions. So would that be the starting point? If people are observing these things, whether it's IBS with diarrhea, IBS with constipation, any motility issues, that would be your sign that you're not producing enough bile. You might not have enough stomach acid, and you might need to be ingesting some enzymes. Would that be a fair assessment?
Yeah, it's a fair assessment. I think keeping it simple like that is really important, because there's so many beautiful products developed on the market and scientifically designed that we do use, because there are other things you can help heal the barrier system at the same time. But improving digestion and improving the choices of food to me are the essential things for healing the gut. And then we add in other things, especially if they have more gut issues they've had for a very long time. But it's amazing to me how if we can do that, just getting digestive system working better, getting motility better, if that is an issue, making sure they're not having extra microbes. We run a GI stool profile because we want to know, do you have lots of different bacterial microbes that have now become very toxic and that are constantly challenging your immune system and constantly inflaming the gut and causing more gut permeability issues? We need to know that. And I have never had, in all the years, 16 years that I have done this work and run a GI stool profile, have I seen a clean gut. Ever. Ever. We have a lot that will have parasites and lots of dysbiotic inflammatory bacteria that give off toxins all the time into the gut and then systemically. We see a lot of mold and fungus and candida. Again, we look at not just candida, but other mold and fungus internally. And the body's always in a fight or flight internally. Their poor immune system is always churned up.
Oh my goodness. It just, it seems kind of hopeless. You paint a bleak picture because we're getting more and more toxins in our environment. And that just says to me that we have to be even more vigilant and more proactive with our health to realize this is something that we can turn around, but it requires a level of dedication and commitment and to literally look under the hood in terms of what's going on. And it starts with your gut function.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I agree. I agree 100%. And I was going to say too, that a lot of times, and I know you've had this experience, it depends upon how long the autoimmune has gone on. It depends upon how many autoimmune we've got that the person is, experiencing. But sometimes within 1 or 2 months, we can see dramatic changes in overall health and responsivity from just working on the gut. And then, of course, if there is an autoimmune issue or especially a thyroid issue, making sure that the thyroid is functioning, making sure things are all functioning to work together. Major improvements in health, major improvements in energy. We see that. I mean, I am amazed, by doing this dietary approach, getting gut healing nutrients or digestive support in, and people actually undertaking the anti-inflammatory diet, how even a month or month and a half, 2 months, how things dramatically shift in their health.
That is so, so, so hopeful. And I love that. I think, where I really want to end this discussion is on a hopeful note in terms of what people can do for themselves right now. And as I understand it, and what I just summarizing what we've talked about before and today, removing the toxic foods and your suspect foods is number one. We've got to get rid of the things that are harming your gut and causing your immune system to react. We want to stop fighting our foods, number one. And you want to replace that, as I understand you saying, with organic food and a colorful variety of vegetables. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You want to make sure that there is
100%.
organic. Get rid of the pesticides, get rid of the GMO foods. We don't know the profile. We know that many people can have a reaction to those and do. But then if you notice some issues with your digestion or your stool, then you're going to want to consider that support. And you're suggesting starting with bitters. Mm-hmm. So that could be like dandelion. That could be like
fennel, dandelion, gentian. There's a lot of different products. There's a product that we use from, do you mind my saying exactly?
Please, go right ahead.
Okay, Apex Energetics, which is a company I love, of course. But they have a product called HCl Prozyme. And the beauty of this product, it does have all the bitter herbs. And in fact, when you taste it even, you can taste the bitter herbs. And it does have betaine hydrochloride at a small level. So you've got some hydrochloric acid, pepsin, and you also have the bitter herbs. So that's a beautifully designed product for gut health and for improving hydrochloric acid output. So we love to use that. But we'll do a challenge, because if a person's having a lot of heartburn, we will often see H. pylori or another type of bacteria causing it. but many times they're very low stomach acid as well. And you could have heartburn and reflux if you're very low stomach acid.
That's right.
Because things are not being digested and they're staying there and they're backing up. So they're not being fully released into the small intestine properly. So definitely get something in there that starts that process, but start slowly with it. And, some practitioners say do it before you eat because you want to start the process. Some say during. I find, especially if a person has a more inflamed or sensitive stomach, we could do it during the meal. And if it doesn't bother you, if it doesn't cause any more release of acid or irritation, then continue that with each meal. And sometimes you have to take 2 the next day with a meal, especially a protein and fat-based meal. So we do an HCl challenge over time. I had one client recently who has SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and inflammatory bowel issues. And we've been working on his gut. He's improved so much. And finally we said, okay, we're now adding hydrochloric acid, stomach acid. So we gave him the bitter product with the HCl. And he says he was up to 15 with each meal, 3 times a day. I was like, okay, do we need to go that far? Yes, maybe we did for a while. I told him, I said, do cut back now. You probably don't need that much because eventually you won't need that much. But can you imagine how deficient he was?
No.
And this is one of the reasons why he was having all of his gas and bloating and motility issues. So that simple treatment, I couldn't do it initially because his gut was so inflamed and we had a lot of microbes to clear. But after 4 or 5 months, we were able to finally do that to help him.
Okay, so you take the HCl Prozyme. Do people need to be on digestive enzymes or stomach acid for life, or does our own body's production kick in at a certain point?
We hope that you don't have to do it for life, but honestly, sometimes it just is necessary. And I thought that wasn't true when I first learned all of this and studied physiology and studied nutrition. I figured we could just do it temporarily, get the parietal cells working better because the bitters do help the parietal cells repair. But I have found that is not necessarily true because of all the assaults that we still experience every day to our digestive system. So a lot of my clients just stay on enzymes and stay on hydrochloric acid, and that's one of their main supplements.
And they can heal. They can
Yes.
heal this way. Now, what about bile flow? Is that just the bitters that this is going to help with, or do we need to do more to initiate and then keep that bile flowing and keep it, what's the word? You want to make sure that it's flowing and it's not clogging things up.
Right.
Bile stasis.
If you look at physiology and gut physiology, you will know that hydrochloric acid stimulates the production of enzymes and stimulates the production of bile. So it's a simple way of going about doing more than one thing with their digestive function. If it's still a problem and they've got a thyroid issue and they do have a slow release of bile or it gets thick, then we're going to add in cholagogues, which is taurine and milk thistle and dandelion root and beets or whatever we need to do to help move the bile. Or if we absolutely need ox bile, we will add that into their protocol. So again, it depends upon how well the stomach is functioning before we even add those other things in.
Got it. So it sounds like, number one, take out the bad stuff, then add the organic stuff, which is the good stuff. Then while you're eating, in the middle of the meal, try that HCl and see if you need more, and then slowly titrate up, right? And then maybe over time you can titrate it down and see. It's all experimentation. We don't have like one size fits all. Everybody's going to be a little bit different.
Yes, years ago in alternative medicine, they used to use the Heidelberg capsule where they'd put it in and it'd go down to see if you were making enough stomach acid. We don't need to do that. We can look at your symptoms. We can tell that you're either not making enough or it's not efficient enough. So you're not making your enzymes as well. So really, it's an easy fix to find out if you're not. Because there's many times when people will say, oh my gosh, I'm having my bowel movements look so beautiful now that I've got enough good digestive function and good motility now.
So important. And so people need to be going to the bathroom at least once a day, maybe twice a day, and then
At
you're getting
least.
back on track, right?
Yeah,
Is that the holy
absolutely.
grail when we know that our digestion is flowing when we're
Absolutely.
going? Okay.
Yeah, flowing when we're
Flowing
going.
when we're going.
All good.
So important to talk about this.
Yeah.
This has just been such a rich conversation, Linda. There's literally tons to digest here. I had no idea that I knew that every cell in the body has thyroid receptors. So I knew the thyroid is
Yes.
such an important gland. I just didn't know that it had to do with lipase production. So if you want to be digesting your fats, you need to be tending towards your thyroid health, which is everything else that we're doing with
Correct.
autoimmunity, right? It's
Yes.
all of those fights factors. Oh, this has just been
Absolutely.
a completely rich conversation. And I'm sure that we will have plenty of opportunity because I know questions are going to come up from this, Linda, and people are going to want to have you back to talk about barrier systems and healing the gut and so forth. But I think this is a perfect place to pause, unless you have anything that you'd like to add to this discussion for the moment.
No, not really, except that really pay attention to what's going on in your digestive system. And that's why I have my clients fill out the metabolic assessment form, which goes over all the aspects of different parts of your physiology, from the liver to the colon to the small intestine, stomach, even saliva, and how you're reacting to foods, your immune tolerance to things. So you're having more reactions to foods. So to me, it's a really good assessment before and after even there's been treatment, is to just look at that kind of an assessment for yourself on an
That's
ongoing basis.
fantastic. That's fantastic. I have it. It's a completable form. I will share it
Very
with people. It's so
Yes.
easy. And it's a great way to test for yourself before and after, because sometimes we're not aware when we've healed. I think there's science that says
Absolutely.
people don't say that they're better until they're 75% better. Have you heard that?
I have heard that. And it's so fascinating you say that, because I see that with my clients. Because what I do when I do a follow up, my first follow up with them, I make a list of all of their symptoms. And then I look at their metabolic assessment form and I see what were the most pronounced symptoms that they had, whether it was energy or mental sluggishness or gut issues. What is it? And I make a list and I say, how about this? How about that? How about and it's so funny. They say, oh, did I list that? And I
They
always
don't even
say,
remember. I
a
know.
lot of times they don't remember. And then so all of that's healed. All the most important things that they came in are
Yeah.
healed or feel are therapeutically doing better. And then they find these other symptoms. They'll say, oh, but what about this? And I say, this is what we were working with.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, so this is proof that food is medicine.
Yes,
But in addition to food, we need a way to digest that food. We need the enzymes. We need the
absolutely.
stomach acid. So it's all
Yes,
part, and we need the thyroid function. It's
yeah,
all part of the picture. And when we have this starting to flow, that's a perfect indication that things are coming back online, right? I mean, right?
absolutely.
Isn't that hopeful?
Because the body heals from the inside out. We have to remember that, because the symptoms will start to shift, but one body system that starts being repaired will start to initiate the process of repair throughout your body. And it may take a little longer for some, but just know that once you start having your gut symptoms are significantly reduced, you're digesting, you're going to have better circulation, you're going to have more vibrancy to your skin, and we see this. And of course, if you're detoxing properly too through all of that, it's the same thing. And there's less inflammation systemically. So other systems have a chance now to repair themselves.
Oh, that is so beautiful. And when your immune system is not fighting your foods
Ah,
or the toxins on top of those
yes,
foods, it is freed up to defend you from real bad guys. And
absolutely.
exactly the message that we need to be hearing right
Thank
now.
you. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. You are just a wealth of fantastic information and experience, Linda. It's just an honor and privilege to know you and talk with you. And I look forward to more conversations like this.
Thank you for allowing me to share, because I've been at this a long time and I talk about this every day. So I appreciate it.
Oh, well, we need you. We're so thrilled for you. Thank you for all the fantastic work that you're doing to heal the world and the people and the planet.
You too, my dear. Take care.
And that's a wrap. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, share it with your friends and family, and if you feel inspired, please leave a quick review so other people can find it too. Now, if you want to beat autoimmune and thrive, make sure you sign up for my free video training at freeautoimmunetraining.com. That's freeautoimmunetraining.com, and watch the first video right away. Take good care. Bye for now.